I'm your host, Ella Nicole.
And I'm your host, Eileen Nikita.
And welcome to the Instant Caregiver, episode 5. Before we start, we're going to ask you guys, please hit the like button. Hit like, okay? That way it helps us to grow our audience and it helps us to share what we're talking about to other people. I feel like it'll be helpful to others as well.
And subscribe if you haven't done
Yeah. If you haven't, please do. Okay. Part 1. So we're going to do this in 2 parts. We're going to talk about the essentials that you need when you are caring for a loved one at home. We brought our mom home December 24th, Christmas Eve, 2018, and we were scared. It was probably the scariest day of our life. We didn't want to be left alone with her because we hadn't really taken care of her like that. We had her for holidays, but we had never been in charge of everything: her feeding, her hygiene, her going to bed, keeping her entertained. So that first week, we were really, really scared. And we never told anybody this, but that first night, we didn't realize she had to put the rails up on the bed, and she fell out of the bed, and that was traumatizing, but she was fine.
Right.
Because we have carpet. Right. And we tried to figure out how to put her back in bed.
And she went to sleep in my arms. I was like, okay.
Right. Okay. She's comfortable. And so it was really, really tough. And we kind of laugh about how scared we were at the beginning, because we started really loving the time when it was just the 3 of us, when we didn't have a CNA, we didn't have the doctors and the nurses here. That's where we bonded the most. So we learned a lot about eating, and I'm going to talk about that later on too. But the main thing that was different is that my mom was eating like White Castle hamburgers and everything. We were used to feeding her regular food. But when she got aspiration pneumonia, we realized that we had to change the game in how we fed her. So we learned how to feed her. We learned what products worked, what products helped in terms of giving her nutrition and to help her maintain her weight. The thing about our mom had dementia. And we always said it's all about the feeding, it's all about the nutrition. So we learned how to feed her, keep her sustained. We're going to talk about today. So we're breaking out in 3 parts. We're going to talk about hiring a good CNA. Once you get a good CNA, what do you do? How do you maintain communication? Then we're going to talk about the doctor, the health element of it, her medication. How do you make sure that they have doctor's appointments or keep their doctor's appointments? And then the routine that we did there. And then we're going to talk about transportation. Even though we didn't move her around a lot, we're going to talk about non-emergency medical transportation and other transportation resources, because our mother was in a wheelchair and she could not stand and sit on her own. So we had to make sure we had transportation that had a wheelchair lift. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is hygiene. Taking care of her, making sure she was clean and bathed. And like I said, one of the things we were afraid of when we moved her home was the smell, because in a nursing home, it was a bad smell. So we thought that would be the same here, but it isn't, and it wasn't. It was really about being able to make sure that we took care of her in the way that she needed to be taken care of.
And so, like she said, we're going to talk about hiring a CNA. And like she said, that very first week, or even maybe I would say at the first month, we were so scared to be alone with her. I can remember thinking back, I was like, please, we want somebody at night in 24 hours. But then, like she said, we were able to move past that. The first thing we did was we thought some really good CNAs from the nursing home to work with us. And we was like, oh yeah, my mom likes her, and that did not work out. It was like, you really saw what they did. And so we were like, okay, we're not going to do that. But then it didn't
work out, because tell her why it didn't work out. Why didn't it work out? Keita.
What do you mean? Why didn't it?
It didn't work out. What were some of the things that we found out that we noticed?
Well, that they really didn't know how to feed her. And the money situation was one of them.
They asked for an advance. One of them asked for an advance up front and then didn't show up after we paid her. a week in
right, yeah.
advance.
And
Yeah, and then
listen, I even made her sign something that said I asked for in advance. This is how much it was. And then later on, when things didn't work, I said, "Well, you owe me some money." And I go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! I have written statement that you owe." But anyway, that didn't work out, and it's just come to find out the same type of mentality they had in nursing home they had in the house. So that didn't work out. Our mom was on hospice. We were asking, "Did you know anyone?" And that's really important. You have to have a CNA that has a good reputation. So they found someone that was a friend of a friend of a friend. And that was a godsend. So there are private agencies that you can use, but they're really expensive. And again, this is even before COVID started, but we wanted someone that was going to be committed to our mom. Found the CNA, and she was really good. She really, kind of interacted with our mom. And that's one of the things. We wanted someone, even though our mom couldn't talk, we still wanted someone to interact with her, who understood that, her needs. Have to find someone that knows someone who can vouch for them, because I feel like that's the best way to get someone, is because they have this reputation that you can kind of base your hiring decision on. And so once we hired her, and I will be honest, we did have a checklist for her, because even though we were in the home, but we were both like in different rooms. So we still had to monitor what she did for our mom. So we had a daily checklist. We asked things such as, did she have a movement that day? We had a time that we wanted her to feed her. We also wanted to know how much she ate. And if she didn't eat something, why? We also had her water intake measured, how much water did she get? And, so every day she had to have that checklist just to make sure that she was doing what it is that we needed. And I'm not going to lie, after the first maybe year and a half, that checklist did kind of disappear, but then we had to go back to it, because we kind of consider her one of the family members. Once you get to know them, they're kind of like an extended family part, but then we still had to go back to that, because she still needed to follow that checklist that we created. And so we also set up expectation. When the COVID hit, we were very, very strict on what it is that we wanted her to do. We made sure she still had to wear a mask. We showed her the difference between 5 feet when she was talking on the phone, she still had to wear a mask and get 5 feet away from our mom. So we were very, very diligent about how we wanted her to provide care. Is there something you want to say to that, Nicole? Or?
Yeah, so you pretty much hit it on the head. Like the hospice person really wasn't supposed to give us a name, and she said that, but she did it. And honestly, that was the best thing for us. It was someone who knew someone who was a good caregiver. And it wasn't perfect. We were not going to say, oh, we had the greatest caregiver. Well, she was good.
Yeah,
honestly, she was great. Really, she was great. We did have a really, really good caregiver. But we had to establish that relationship. And the downside to that, and we're just going to keep it up front, is that because we only had one caregiver, if she got sick or if something happened, it was on us. So we had to take care of our mom on the days that she was not here. And that's the price of only having one caregiver. And to me, she was worth having. One of her was worth having 5 from an agency. Because everyone would say, well, why don't you get an agency? Because if she calls off, you can have. No, because part of the care is the familiarity with the person that's being cared for, our mom. So she was familiar with her mom. And we did. In the beginning, we even had a couple other people that she recommended. It didn't work out just because our mom had to be fed in a certain type of way. And even when things change. And so when you have a caregiver, you want to have someone that's consistent. We did private pay. We didn't have to deal with the agencies or any of that. And then we also gave our caregiver incentive. We gave her sick leave with pay. Mm-hmm. So we did a lot of little things to really kind of forge that relationship and build a relationship of trust. So she knew how much we needed her and how much she needed us, for sure.
Right. And even when COVID hit and we had to shut down, we valued her so much that we didn't want her to go out and look for another job. We paid her during those 2.5, 3 months of the shutdown to make sure that we continually have her once everything opened back up.
Right. I mean, because we knew that for caregivers, it was dangerous, even going into the nursing home. And that's another thing. She only worked for us. So that was her only paycheck. we were only clients. And that, again, helped to build a rapport and a relationship with our mom. And I don't know if everybody can do that, but if you can get one or two people, I would say if you have a coworker or someone you know who has an elderly parent they're taking care of, or they know someone, you can ask there. I know that one of my sorority sisters, she's a member of a church, and there are several caregivers at the church, and they were working with people that they knew. So I hate to say it, but we did not have any experience with a healthcare agency. And from what I've learned, that's not necessarily the best route to go when you're looking for caregiving.
Yeah, and also we're gonna put the checklist that in the description box. So if you all want to use that, you can kind of give you a template.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong, we had to update the checklist because as our mom declined, and with dementia there is a decline, obviously the caregiving changes. So we had meetings just like they did in the nursing home. We had a care plan, and we met with the caregiver to explain, okay, this is what's going on. We had a little incident early 2021 February when our mom was like coughing, and she really was moaning. And that's how we know, like I said, we know how to communicate with her. She knew how to communicate with us even without using words. And we had to modify the way in which the caregiver fed her. So much so that we had to watch her the next day and let her know that, okay, she's changing. So what you did 2 years ago is not going to work now. Right. So just be mindful of that, that the caregiving expectations and needs do change throughout, and be willing to discuss it, and don't be afraid to discuss it with your caregiver.
Right. And then one of the things that we realize is that, yeah, you do become like really close, but you still have to keep that professionalism, because it's always hard, when you have that friendship with the person, but you gotta reprimand them for whatever.
So what, y'all? She's talking about me. She said I was too talkative and too friendly. And that, I like to talk to people. So she was right. So one of us had to be like the one to break down the rules, I guess, when I did it. So like I was like being a friend. But yeah, so that's true. You have to make, even though they love your loved ones and you love them for what they do, they still are your employee, and you should have that employee-employer relationship. He was in HR, so that's her thing. I was like, okay, I won't joke anymore. No, I could joke with her, but yeah, there had to be that line there. So I'm glad that she mentioned that. So we talked about when our mom came home, she was on hospice, and honestly, you guys, that really helped us tremendously. But when our mom graduated from hospice twice, we lost a lot of free services. And like I tell people, and people are afraid, I say, if your loved one, you want to bring them home, or they're at the hospital and they offer the hospice care, the palliative care, take it. It doesn't mean that the loved one is going to pass away quickly. It's just you get that extra care. So, and Medicare pays for that. So we had a nurse that came in daily. We had a doctor. Well, we had the nurses that came in. We got the doctor. We had another CNA that came in, and they just gave our CNAs a little bit of a break. We didn't mind them bathing her, just not feeding her.
Right. And
they
paid for all the therapist. Remember,
we had a massage therapist, a music therapist. That didn't really work. My mom likes Motown, and they came in with some folk guitar, but it was a lot. Mommy was like, "What is this girl doing?"
I'm looking at us like,
we wanted, right? But hey, she plays the guitar. All right. We should have said, you don't have somebody to do Motown. But anyway, so I say that to say that all of those services are taken away, and it's like a blessing. And it's like a bittersweet blessing that, she's off hospice. But then you have to figure out, how am I going to get her medicine? Because hospice pays for everything. Who's going to come see her? And for us, and this is even pre-COVID, transportation was difficult, and I'm going to talk about non-emergency transportation and regular transportation, but I had no idea that they had visiting doctors. So I looked up, and I think the hospice kind of told us, we have this, so in where we are, we have something called a Visiting Doctors Association. And that, when I tell you that was a godsend, it really, really was, because anytime, so we had a doctor that came to visit, and he also had a nurse. He would come initially like once a month, the first 3 months, and then it was like every 3 months. Our mom could get, now I was so used to so we had a visiting doctor and a visiting nurse. So we want to look for services that come to your home, mobile health services. And I think that's getting big now that more and more people are taking their loved ones and they are caring for them at home. When my mom needed blood work, they came, took her blood. When she needed an x-ray, because like I said, with the dementia, aspiration is always in the back of your mind. So if my mom was coughing and the doctor wanted to see if she had anything in her lungs, they did an x-ray with her in a wheelchair. I didn't know that was possible.
Me either.
But so pretty much all the hair care, all the necessary healthcare things that you need, you can have them come to your house. But then that was our choice. It just got to be difficult because she was, so frail, and with dementia and Alzheimer's, you don't really want to upset anything. So she was already comfortable at home. So for us, the visiting physician was the best choice for us.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add, Keita?
No, I'm just saying it was just a godsend because we were so lost. We were like, what are we going to do? And they kind of came in and kind of eased our mind a little bit, which
right.
Dr. Hopkins.
And then next we're going to talk about, so we talked about the healthcare aspect of it. They had a nurse, they had a doctor. Then also our CNA did not do medication. She refused, she wasn't comfortable, which I'm okay with that. So we had some tools that we used. Number one, we liked the fact that the hospital had a delivery service for our mom's medication. So we're just, again, blessed. I don't use the word lucky, but we were so blessed that we lived next door to a pharmacy and they had delivery. I'm not talking about mail service. I don't necessarily believe, I get it for myself, but I don't believe in mail service because it's so unreliable. But find a pharmacy that has delivery service, same day, meaning they have their own delivery.
Right, because
that's one thing.
Right, because the doctor would say, well, she needs this, and that would be like at 9:00. And the next day we were having, that's how quick it was. He would call in and they would deliver it the next day.
Very convenient if you're caregiving. So definitely make sure you get a pharmacy that does delivery services. What I did was we also I bought from Amazon a weekly medication kit, and we put the medication in for the whole week. And then we also had a grinder, because our mom could not take pills. We put it in her pudding. So you want to make sure you have a medication kit. Do it on Sunday. I would do it for the whole week. And that's okay. So if something was missing, I would know that we would let the doctor know to send it to the pharmacy. If your person has difficulty swallowing pills, again, you want to get the grinder. And let me tell you, and Amazon was our friend because I found a lot of resources, again, that we'll talk, we'll put the link at the end from Amazon that just make caring for our mom a lot easier and getting the stuff that we needed quicker. So we talked about medication, doctors, transportation. So transportation, we kind of got that down when my mom was in a nursing home, because for us, we never kept her there on the holidays, any excuse to get her out, for real. And so we had to find a taxi service that had lifts, and that's really hard to find. I know in some bigger cities, I know Uber does have some drivers who have the lift, but it was really difficult at the beginning to find taxi services with lifts. I mean, they'll have, where you can put the wheelchair in the back of the seat or the back of the trunk. But once we found a taxi service that had a lift, we kind of formed a relationship with them. So they knew on July 4th, certain days, Christmas, Thanksgiving, we're going to have transportation. And that was, again, a godsend for us because it allowed us to transport her anywhere, whenever we wanted to.
Yeah. And I just didn't realize how hard it was, how hard it would be to get someone in a wheelchair from point A to point B. I just thought it would be super easy. I'm like, there are lots of people in wheelchairs, but there are very specific cab companies that have wheelchairs, right? Not a lot.
Right. And then we had one guy who actually had one and it broke down on our mom's birthday, and I was devastated because I didn't want her to be at the nursing home. But again, you want to find taxi services to have a lift. If you have a lift, that's great. I could not afford one because they were very, very expensive. And I didn't have the kind of car. I had a sports car, so it wouldn't even work for me anyway. Right. So, and then also, and I think they arranged it with Medicare and Medicaid, if they do have a doctor's appointment and you do have to go to the doctor's office. They do have non-medical emergencies, transportation companies. I would say before using those, go online and look at the reviews, because the reviews will tell you everything that you need to know. And so if you're taking care of them at home, you have control over who you're going to use for non-emergency medical transportation. Right?
Yep.
Right. So one of the things that Nikita's going to talk about next is hygiene. Like, one of the things that we were afraid of is we live in an apartment building and we had very, very narrow doors. How do we keep our mom clean? So Nikita's going to talk about that.
You know, I am very sensitive to smell. And like she said, when we first brought her home, that was like, okay, what are we going to do? What's our game plan? You know, so my mom, you know, she was very tiny, so we knew that we couldn't like get her in a shower or a bathtub. So between the CNA, we looked and found and they have this plastic thing that you can use so you can give a bath in the bed. And so that's one of the things, and we found that on Amazon. And then there's certain products, you know, because my mom's skin was very, very soft and thin. So you have to be very mindful what you do to give them a bath, you know, for sensitive skin. And we're going to put everything that we use in the description box if you want to. And then also, our mom was in a wheelchair, so she couldn't go to the restroom. So we have to have adult depend. And then with that being said, there's certain wipes that we use for her, you know, and it's just I just want to make sure we want to give her dignity and all this other stuff, but we're just telling you about the product that we use that you probably can use on your loved ones. And
we have to, let me interrupt for just Nikita with Nikita and our friend show, A CNA, they did a fine job of taking care of our mom's skin. She may have had an inkling of one bed sore near the end, but she never had bed sores. The doctor was amazed. He said he had never seen anyone be that much, you know, incapacitated, meaning in a wheelchair in the bed, who never developed a wound, a pressure wound. And that really, I'm going to tell you guys, is a testament to the way in which my sister and friend Cheryl, I'm always going to cry, but it's the way they took care of her, you know? So you have to pay attention to those things. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
Go ahead.
But even with her, because, you know, we checked her like every 2 hours. You know, that's what they're supposed to do in a nursing home. You're supposed to check them every 2 or 3 hours to make sure if they needed to be changed. And so that's what we did. And also there's certain creams that you can put on their bodies to make sure that prevents them to get bed sores. Even if you see like a little red dot, there's a cream that you can buy to put on that and make sure that it doesn't turn into anything serious. And I remember one time we called the doctor because she did have a little red dot, and he was like, all I see is a dot. I go, yeah, but we just want to make sure. Is it going to turn it? And he was like, she's okay. Sometimes I felt like we were, I don't know.
Right. We would call just because, you know, we were on top. And that's another thing. It's the personalized care. We knew every inch of her. We knew how, you know, if she coughed, you know, I'm like, what was that? What's going on? You know, we made sure, you know, it was a personalized individual care that she wasn't able to get in the nursing home. You know, we're at home, we know her, we can see what's going on with her. And then going back to the skincare, Nikita even made up her own little concoction. When I was like, what is she doing? But it was with Vaseline, and then also the certain types of cream that she used. And we'll put that in our description as well. And she'll tell you how she mixed it up. And like I said, I do believe that definitely helped our mom. Another product that we used was a baby monitor. And
yes.
We're both hard of hearing, and our mom's room was not really far away, but we really couldn't hear her if she were to yell. So
she was sleeping in the bed,
right. So we didn't want to do a camera monitor, so we did a baby monitor. It had we put it next to her bed, and it had 2 receivers. So she had one and I had one. So anytime I heard anything or she heard anything, we could go and check on her. And that definitely gave us peace of mind as well. So this is part 1. Like we said, it was just so much to put in, and our episodes are a certain amount of time. We forgot to ask you guys, please hit that like button. The more you hit like and the more you share, other people can get this valuable information. And I definitely think we're providing a service to other people Thank you for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't. Also hit the share button.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.